What stood out the most during week 3 of OTAs for the New Orleans Saints? Ladies and gentlemen, we are here with NewOrleans.Football. Of course, I've said before, I'll say it again. If you want day-to-day, play-by-play updates of OTAs, training camp, and whatnot, go to NewOrleans.Football.com. They are there on the grounds every second, every minute of training camp. So they are the source for all your information. Let's go ahead and listen to what we've done these videos every week of what they're seeing, what's standing out for better or for worse. It's not always positive. Sometimes, like the last update, Spencer Rattler kind of struggled, but to be expected. That's what development is for. So let's see what has stood out in week 3.
Mike, you had it covered. You had your observations that you put on the website, but you were literally watching everything else that was happening on the field. What stood out today?
You know, it's funny. I said the other.
This right here. This is how you know. This is how you know they're putting in the work. This is how you know Mike Triplett is out there. The redness, the hue. He almost looks like a Creole tomato. He is. You can tell. The sun is absolutely winning the rounds. I mean, if this is a 5-round championship fight, he is down 0-4 in the rounds. He needs a knockout. He needs a submission. Otherwise, the sun's going to take the undisputed championship. This is what I like to see. All right, I like to see him coming in dehydrated. Okay, battling sun poisoning. I like that because it means that they're out there, right, unprotected. Okay, not enough sunbum in the world. Love it.
The other day, what I wanted to watch during the second OTA practice, I said I want to watch more Isaiah Foskey and Peyton Turner. But as it turned out, since I was trying to keep the heavy lift
consciousness, probably trying to keep consciousness, trying to keep just survival. So sometimes survivability is the best ability. And right here, when you're looking at this kind of just a war-torn, leathery situation, I mean, think about it, ladies and gentlemen. He's talking about I'm risking myself to watch Isaiah Foskey reps.
With the observations, I was watching every play because I was charting every play and what happened on all of them. And Isaiah Foskey made himself noticed regardless. Like he got some snaps with the ones, and he was heavy on the pressure when Derek Carr threw the first interception that we've seen of OTAs. Started with a batted pass at the line of scrimmage. We think it was Kendall Vickers. Got NOF correspondent Demario Davis to go fact check that for me in the locker room. He believed it was Kendall Vickers on the first tip, and then Alontae Taylor on the second tip, and then Demario Davis ultimately intercepted it. But Foskey was in on the pressure on that. There's another time where he had him dead to rights for a sack. There was another time earlier in practice where he was bringing the pressure, and either him or the guy next to him batted a pass down.
Well, and this is important. Well, it's one of those things where it's like, a little bit of positive, a little bit of negative. But one of our biggest issues last year was pass rush. One of the biggest issues was pressure, right? So it's good to hear that our defensive line is getting pressure on the quarterback. Now, the negative side of that coin is that probably doesn't bode well for our offensive line if they are allowing the pressure to Derek Carr already. But a little bit of give and take. But it is good to hear certain players, like Isaiah Foskey, are being impactful early on. That's what we want. Whoever it is. We have a rotational situation with Foskey and Young and Turner and whoever. So whoever it ends up, Cam Jordan, whoever it ends up being, as being the guy who's wreaking havoc, causing some pressure, I'll take it. I don't care if it's what the combination is. Just the fact that we can get pressure, that like from going from 0 last year, where there was 0 pressure. If we have just a 10%, 20% bump and just not even sacks, just how much, just our quarterback pressure rate, that would make a good defense so much better.
It's a really good practice for Foskey, and he was in Nick's observations in week 2 as well. So way too early to say that means anything, but just really promising. That's one of the players we want to be hearing positive things about this week. The other one that I talked about in the dot video and in my observations, speaking of sophomores who need to get their career going the right way, Lou Hedley killed it today. I'm telling you, that was like a highlight video. His 13 punts in practice.
I mean, I'm not sure what it says about the team when Lou Hedley is a standout. Not good. I mean, you don't want your punter to be the standout. I mean, the less we see of Lou Hedley, the better. You don't want your punter to be the high value player on your team.
We're like
I think it was the Colts. Somebody double check me. One of the years, the Colt punter, he only punted like 5 times that entire season. And I think he went through a stretch where he did not punt for like 8 or 9 weeks. It was one of Peyton's best years. So, that's what you want. You want the punter to just hang out on the sidelines. You don't want them being the guy where it's like, wow, that punter was incredible today.
Compilation of his 13 best punts from a season. Two sophomores who are on the way up. There's some other highlights in there as well. I actually think on this day, I think Spencer Rattler got the better of Jake Haener. So we saw 2 straight practices where Haener looked better than Rattler, and we kind of like came up with an opinion. Well, now it's 2-1. So
that's exactly what you want. Exactly what you want from Haener and Rattler is that they're just neck and neck the whole off season, and really the whole season. You're hoping that every practice one's better than the other. You're hoping they constantly push each other, and that is the beautiful thing where Haener and Rattler are pseudo competing with each other. They're not competing with Carr, and their competition. I say pseudo competing because their competition is just going to make each other better. So you don't want to hear Rattler wins 10 straight practices. You don't want to hear Haener wins 10 straight practices. You want to hear right now that they're competing every single day.
That's going to be a battle that goes all the way into camp.
All right, we're doing a combo OTA video because these are kind of short. This is also NewOrleans.Football, obviously. This one is titled, What Did We Learn After Watching Dennis Allen and Klint Kubiak's Every Single Move at Practice? Take it away.
The Saints were back on the practice field for OTA 3. Of course, NewOrleans.Football was covering every angle of it. And even more uniquely this time, Nick and I just spent the whole practice focusing on one person. And he focused on DA and I focused on Klint Kubiak. You'll have to hit NewOrleans.Football to really go through the minute-by-minute breakdown of how they interact.
I think it's very interesting. I think it's a very interesting wrinkle they're including this year because it's one thing to just watch the entire team and to say like, okay, the whole team looked good or this looked good or here's the theme or whatever. But when you focus on one single person or player the entire practice and provide these minute-by-minute updates, it really does let you know like how they're shifting everything, how they're changing that vision, how they're actually playing. Like if you look at a player and you just look at their highlights, it's like, okay, this player was sweet today, right? But if you look at the entire body of work, it really gives you a good idea of what's actually happening out there. The fact that they're doing it with Dennis Allen and Klint Kubiak, I love because that is, I think, the biggest driver of the change of the season. Every time I talk about the Saints, I always talk about the same thing. I talk about the vision and the strategy and the culture and all that changing. This is a good way to know how exactly it's changing.
In practice and what are some of the things that they do. But overall, they were just doing themselves and we were there watching. So, Nick, what did you see about DA? What stood out?
Yeah, I think the thing that stood out to me about DA is, man, just kind of like watching him coach and everything. I mean, he's in the details. He's in it. He's making a lot of corrections. He's got his eye on everything. And then when it's time to lock in on the defense, he really locks in on the defense. And
it's freed him up. I mean, we'll see. We'll see. But it has freed Dennis up, I believe, to, and I could be wrong. I never am, but I could be wrong. It's freed Dennis up to do what he is best at doing, coaching the defense. He's not worried about, also dealing with the offense, also trying to figure out how to pseudo coach the offense because of Pete Carmichael. He's now willing, I believe, to let Klint Kubiak and Andrew Janocko take that over. And it's freed up Dennis to focus on the defense and focus on whatever culture he wants to build as a head coach. Because it is important for the head coach as the authority figure in the locker room to instill a certain type of culture. So we keep talking about how it's a fresh start for Derek Carr. It's a fresh start for Chris Olave. It's a fresh start for all these players, getting to the reps of last year, but washing away a lot of the negativity. It's the same thing for Dennis. Like, Dennis is getting a fresh start just as much as everyone else. I mean, Dennis is still on the hot seat. Make no mistake about it. Like, Dennis is getting a fresh start. He still has a lot of pressure on him. But this has probably rejuvenated the players just as much as it's rejuvenated Dennis Allen, bringing in all the new coaches and all the new energy.
It was interesting to watch him not just coach players, but coach coaches too. And I think one of the things that he does really well is obviously he inherited that offensive staff, but over the years, he's done a really great job of developing his defensive coaches. You see the same level of care and detail on the other side, him going over and, showing, how to do something, him finding out why they're doing something. Like, all that stuff is incredibly detailed. I'm not going to give it all away in the story. There was kind of like one thing about where he just kind of started like, hey, if you see this formation, this is what's going to happen. And it was just like, damn, like that's like.
I mean, there's no doubt about it. Like, Dennis has got it figured out when it comes to defense. And it also, not surprisingly, that his defensive coaches are also progressing at a high rate because he is such a good defensive coach. So, and that's what you're missing whenever you have a great coordinator. And some coaches are coordinators. Like, they're just great coordinators. They're great at their side of the ball. They're great at defense. They're great at offense, and they don't want to be head coaches, or they can't be head coaches. And when you're forced to take on new duties and you're forced to deal with logistics and all of that a head coach has to deal with, you do kind of lose some sight of what side of the ball you're great at. All of this with Dennis now, I love to hear that he's really in the weeds, really in the details of the defense. And that is a huge point of emphasis for us if we're going to be good. If the Saints are going to challenge for the NFC South, if we are going to challenge for 10 wins or 10 plus wins or whatever, we absolutely have to have a top 10 defense. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. When the Saints were viable last year, the defense was unbelievable. When the defense got a little lost in the middle to the back end / middle of the season, that's when it was not pretty. This defense cannot be bad. That has to be a foundation for the Saints, is that the defense has to be a top 10 side, and then hopefully Kubiak and the offense catches up, and then we get that like top 12 offense, top 10 defense. And if you have that with the schedule that we have and the division we're in, you can absolutely win 10 games. You can absolutely win the division. You can absolutely host a playoff game. And like Tampa Bay showed last year, when you're hosting a playoff game, you never know. And then you get a win there, boom, all of a sudden, very successful season. So I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to see, I think, and defense is no longer the like sexy side of the ball. So everything that you think of like great offensive coaches like Mike McDaniel or Sean McVay or even Sean Payton when he was in New Orleans, like when you think about that, you think about like, oh, well, this coach is so good, he'll develop these players, or these players will find a way with that guy. You got to kind of say that with Dennis and defense. And that's why I think Chase Young is going to have a great year. If anybody can take Chase Young and figure out how to get the most out of him, it's Dennis Allen. So I'm loving these updates. I want more of the updates of Kubiak and Allen and the vision and the culture. And like I'm just so excited to hear about that part of the team. Like when I heard about the DeMario Davis and Derek Carr, off the field team building things and all of that, that is just like, that's getting me fired up for the season. Almost as much as like the position battles and how Trevor Penning's doing or how Talise Fuaga's doing. This new vision and culture, how quickly it seems to be trending in a positive way, that's got me fired up. Ladies and gentlemen, get on down in the comments below. Let me know what you thought about OTA Week 3 updates. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.